Part 1 of 5. Ari was the kind of boy who loved the sound of a ball echoing in a gym, any gym. On weekday afternoons he drifted from game to game like a bee going flower to flower. Table tennis in the corner where the plastic ball clicked like raindrops on a roof. American football out on the field where the whistle sounded like a train. Volleyball where the ball hovered like a small moon. Tennis where strings sang a quick hum with every stroke. And of course the soccer field where the goals were white windows to the sky. He tried everything because he wanted to feel the fit, the click, the yes of a sport that matched his heartbeat. But none of them felt like home yet. With table tennis, his paddle whispered past air so often that the ball seemed to vanish, and he laughed even as it darted by him like a hummingbird. In American football, the pads were big as armor and he tumbled gently to the turf, the grass sweet under his cheek, the pile-on oddly soft and full of giggles rather than grunts. Volleyball was beautiful, a flock of hands sending a white bird back and forth, but when Ari jumped, he rose only a little, like a leaf caught on a soft breeze, then fell back, feet kissing the floor. Tennis made his arms sing, but the ball raced away from him like a comet, and pickleball was a warm spring morning of a sport, light and friendly, yet it still wasn't a match for the secret shape of his dreams. Soccer, though, that was different. The first time he stood near a goal, the net shimmered like a silver spiderweb in sunlight, and he had an odd feeling, a gentle pull, as if the goal was a door waiting to open. He tried defending 1 week, running sideways like a crab and standing tall, but the ball ticked past him more than he liked. He tried playing in the middle of the field, flicking passes and spinning to see the world, but he felt like a little fish in a big, fast river. And then, one afternoon when the team was missing a goalkeeper, the coach looked around for a volunteer. "I can try," Ari said, raising a hand that trembled the way a leaf trembles when a bird lands on it. The gloves they had were too big, the fingers folding over his own like extra sleeves. He stepped in front of the white posts. The field spread in front of him like a green sea, and he felt very small, like a lighthouse learning for the first time how to shine. "Ready?" called his friend Mateo, who liked to shoot hard because he liked the sound, the tum that felt like a drum. Ari nodded, but he was scared to even touch the ball when it came fast. The first shot streaked toward him and his hands froze. The ball smacked the net behind him and shivered the ropes with a sound like wind through a curtain. He tried again, and another shot zipped by like a swallow, and he flinched. Even when he reached out bravely, the push of the ball made his palms sting and his fingers fold. He couldn't jump high to catch the ones that floated. He couldn't kick the ball very far when he finally got it, and when he tried to throw, it felt like tossing a stone into a river and watching it plop a little distance and stop. Other players brushed past him without meaning to, yet he tumbled, light as a paper plane that met a breeze, and once someone swung a leg at the ball and caught Ari's shin by mistake. He had shin guards, smooth and sturdy as little shields, but he still felt the thump like a knock on a door. On the way home that day, he walked slowly, backpack straps tight in his hands, eyes tracing the edges of clouds that looked like sails. He felt small. He felt lean. He had always looked a little like a willow, thin, bendy, with wrists that showed and elbows that pointed. His classmates joked that he could hide behind a lamppost and no one would spot him. Lunch, when someone suggested arm wrestling, he lost to most of them, including his friend Maya, who was kind and quick and ate spinach without making a face. She never gloated. She'd pat his hand and say, "You'll get there. You've got timing." But today Ari felt timing was a faraway mountain and he was a tiny ant. Still, when he got home, he sat at his desk and pulled out a notebook with a blue cover. He had kept it for drawings of shoes and gloves, but now he turned to a blank page. Paper smelled faintly like the inside of a drawer. Pencil was a smooth little wand. He wrote a title across the top, pressing softly so the letters wouldn't look angry. My plan to become a great goalkeeper. The words startled him. He hadn't decided to write that until the tip of his pencil did it for him. He stared at the page. His heart made a quiet drum in his chest, the kind you feel instead of hear. Then he wrote what he felt and what stood in his way, all in a small, neat hand. I'm lean. I look weak. I lose arm wrestling to everyone. Even Maya. I'm scared of fastballs. I get pushed over easily. My shins hurt from kicks, even with guards. I can't jump high. I can't kick far. I can't throw far. I can't dive yet. I'm not fast enough to reach the ball. He tapped the eraser against his lip and added softly, as if whispering a wish to the page, but I love the goal. I want to protect it. I want to be brave there. He flipped the pencil around and drew a little picture of a goal with a tiny figure standing in front of it, arms open like a hug. He drew a moon in the sky as a ball, because it felt true at night the moon did look like a ball gently held up by strings. He turned to a new page and wrote the next part. I will get stronger push-ups, sit-ups, squats, planks, leg raises, burpees, mountain climbers, jumping jacks, high knees, lunges, calf raises, glute bridges, bicycle crunches, Russian twists, flutter kicks, Superman exercise, and wall sits. I will do cardio running, jogging, swimming, cycling, skipping rope, dancing, hiking, rowing, stair climbing, shadow boxing, kickboxing, aerobics, Zumba, spinning. I will be flexible yoga, Pilates, dynamic stretching to warm up, static stretching to cool down. I will eat well, more protein, complex carbs, healthy fats, lots of colors for vitamins and minerals. Less sugar and junk. More water. I will practice goalkeeper drills, catching, diving, throwing, kicking, positioning. I will watch videos of great goalkeepers. I will learn by seeing. I will play in local clubs and tournaments to gain experience. I will believe in myself even when I fall. I will never give up. I will sleep like it's training too. Rest is when I build. Then he wrote neatly, like a promise, I will become a great goalkeeper. He sat back. The desk lamp shone a warm pool of light around the words. He could feel something new humming quietly inside him. Fear was still there, fear of fast shots, of falling, of looking silly, but now it had a friend, a plan. And a plan, he decided, was like a map you keep in your pocket when you walk into the woods. At dinner, he told his parents. His mom paused with her spoon in the air. A goalkeeper, she said, eyes lifting as if she could see a stadium hidden in the ceiling. That's a beautiful kind of brave. His dad smiled. Your grandfather told me once strong trees bend with the wind so they don't break. You're lean, yes. But lean can be springy. Springy can fly. Ari felt a warmth in his chest like sunlight on a windowsill. Could we start tonight? He asked. Tonight you start with sleep, his mom said gently. But after dishes, we can make a little list of foods to keep in the fridge that will help you train. And tomorrow morning we'll run together. Not too far, his dad added, eyes crinkling. We'll start like a little river, quiet and steady. He slept that night with his notebook under his pillow. In the soft theater of dreams, he stood in a goal woven out of starlight. The net stretched behind him like a hammock of clouds. When a ball came, it looked like the moon rolling down a silver string. He reached out. In the dream, his hands didn't flinch. He caught the moon and it was light as breath and warm like holding a small promise. Morning brought the lemony scent of clean air and the sound of birds making their own tiny whistled drills. Ari pulled on his shoes. His dad laced his too with the same careful double bow as if tying a present. They jogged down their street, the sky pale gold like the inside of a peach. Ari's breath puffed in soft little clouds. His feet felt like metronomes tapping a rhythm left, right, left, right. They didn't go far. They didn't need to. It was enough to feel his body waking up, enough to feel the morning say yes. For school, Ari went to the park with his notebook tucked in his bag and a bottle of water cold as river stones. He started on the grass with the simplest things. Push-ups he could do 3 before his arms trembled like string plucked on a guitar. Sit-ups 5 and his belly felt warm as toast. Squats 10 and his legs hummed like bees. He did a plank and counted to 15, each second like a penny in a jar. He did lunges that made his thighs sing, calf raises that tickled his ankles, and glute bridges that made his hips feel like hinges on a sturdy door. High knees made him remember horses, and he lifted his legs like he was stepping over sparkling puddles. Mountain climbers introduced him to the idea that your own body could be a mountain and a climber at the same time, and that made him grin even as his shoulders shook. He felt small beginnings. Through each little set, he wrote a tiny check mark in his notebook with a line beside it, "Good job." The words felt like a friend patting his back. He added something different each day. Flutter kicks, and he imagined little fishtails. Bicycle crunches, and he pictured riding up a hill where the view at the top would be his very first brilliant save. Russian twists with a light ball in his hands, turning side to side, and he smiled at the name because it sounded like a dance. Superman exercise lying on his belly, arms and legs lifting, and he thought, all right, not a superhero yet, but maybe a super beginner. Wall sits where his legs burned in the best way and time slowed like honey dripping from a spoon. He knew he would need his heart to be a strong drummer. So he ran and jogged, sometimes with his dad, sometimes with Maya, who danced along beside him, counting steps to the beat of songs only she could hear. He pedaled his bike along the river path where the W. Tear chuckled softly at the rocks. He swam at the pool, the world suddenly blue and quiet as a secret, and learned to love the feeling of arms pulling water like silk ribbons. He jumped rope until the tapping became a heartbeat on the ground, shadowboxed until his hands flashed like little birds, and learned simple kickboxing combinations from a kindly instructor who said, "Fast feet, softer hands," which felt like high poetry to Ari. He tried an aerobics class with his mom where the music wove everyone together like a friendly net, and he discovered Zumba was like laughing with your feet. He climbed stairs. He hiked a gentle trail with his dad to watch a sunrise shimmer like a coin, and he even once tried a spinning class where the bikes hummed like bees and his legs did their best to sing along. Every evening he stretched. Dynamic stretches at first, leg swings like pendulums, arm circles that made him think of windmills, and after, static stretches where he held positions like whispers. He tried yoga with a video that showed someone balancing calmly like a tree. Ari swayed but didn't fall. And he tried a Pilates session that taught him about a center, about a core, about gathering strength like a drawstring. He liked that. He liked anything that felt like quietly building. His diet changed like a garden in spring. Breakfast, once rushed and sweet, became scrambled eggs with spinach, a slice of whole grain toast that smelled like warm fields, and berries that popped with sunlight. Lunch included beans and rice, the two spooning each other perfectly, with carrots that crunched like small sticks and hummus that felt like a smooth cheer. Dinner was grilled chicken or chickpeas, roasted sweet potatoes that looked like little sunsets, and a curl of avocado that tasted like smooth green hope. He still loved treats. It wasn't that he banished them. He just listened to his plan: less sugar, less junk, more water. He never knew water could taste so good until he was thirsty for it, and then it tasted like a clear bell. He kept watching. He watched videos of goalkeepers, old and young, tall and not so tall, famous and not famous at all. He noticed how their feet were never planted like trees but skittered, always whispering across the grass. He noticed how they made their bodies into shapes: a W with their hands, elbows soft, so the ball nestled instead of bounced, a diamond for high catches, fingers pointing up like arrows, a smother for low shots, knees bending, body folding like a blanket around the ball. He saw how some stepped forward as a shot came, stealing space the way sunrise steals darkness. He noticed eyes, how a goalkeeper's eyes were as busy as bees, scanning angles, counting steps, listening to the world that wasn't even sound. He watched them talk too, using their voices like lanterns: left, right, man on, step. He practiced those words in his room when no one was listening. He liked how they felt in his mouth, useful and bright. Set, see, step, save, he whispered to himself, a little mantra he found in a video. Set, see, step, save. He practiced catching with a tennis ball against the garage door, the bounce quick and surprising, his hands taut by the small sting. He practiced throwing with a soccer ball, first to a chalk circle on the wall and then to Maya, who'd show up with her hair in a quick ponytail and her energy like a full battery. They stood 5 steps apart, then 7, then 9. Ready, she'd say. Ready, he'd reply, and that word tasted good, like a bite of a crisp apple. Once a week, he went to a local sports club. The building smelled like polished wood and cheerful effort. There, a coach named Elena watched them with eyes that saw the whole field and the tiny things too. She was gentle as rain and precise as a ruler. "You don't need to be the tallest tree," Coach Elena told Ari during a break, handing him a cup of water. "You can be the bamboo that bends and springs. Use angles. Use timing. Use courage, yes, but also use calm. Make the goal smaller with your mind and your feet." "How do I make a goal smaller?" he asked, smiling because it sounded like a magic trick. "By standing in the right place," she said, tapping the ground with her shoe. "By stepping at the right time. The ball has a straight line to the corner, your job is to block that line. Not every save is a flying save. Sometimes a brave step meets the ball before it gets dangerous. Feet first, hands next. You'll dive later. First, you'll learn to meet the ball like a friend you spotted across the street. You close the distance." Ari felt the sentence click into him like a puzzle piece. He nodded. "Feet first," he repeated, imagining his feet as small, fast birds. They drilled. A lot of it wasn't glamorous. It was short, quick steps, 1-2, 1-2, until his calves hummed and his ankles felt awake like they had tiny eyes inside. It was shuffles that made his hips as loose as hinges so he could glide side to side without crossing his feet. It was practicing the set position again and again, knees bent, body tall, arms out as if hugging a very gentle invisible bear. Sometimes he was scared. A ball would zip toe, ard him, and he'd feel himself wanting to duck. But then Coach Elena would toss an easy one, and another, letting his hands get used to the taste of catching, light to heavy, slow to quick. She had him kneel and catch against his chest, the ball thumping like a soft knock, then stand and do it again. The drills grew as vines grow, inch by inch. One afternoon, he tried his first careful dives onto a thick mat. Coach Elena knelt beside him and showed him how to fold and roll, landing like a slice of bread on one side rather than a flat pancake. "Chin tucked," she said. "Hands first. Elbow safe. Hip rolls, shoulder slides. Think of the ground as a mattress, a friend. You're not crashing. You're greeting." He hesitated, breath small and fast. "Close your eyes for one tight second," said Coach Elena. "Picture something soft. Cloud, a pillow, a field of dandelions." Ari pictured the net from his dream, a hammock of clouds. He let air out. He pushed and rolled. He landed on the mat and nothing hurt. Felt, he surprised himself, fun. "Again," she said. He did. Again. He did, and this time he smiled because the world blurred and the ball looked big and friendly when he moved to meet it. He had moments that made his cheeks feel hot with frustration. There was a scrimmage where he let in 3 goals in 2 minutes, and the third one brushed past his hands like a shy cat. He wanted to shout. Instead, he stood, breathing slow, counting 4 beats in, 4 beats out, making a square with his breath like drawing a window. Coach Elena put a hand on his shoulder and squeezed once. "You're doing the brickwork," she said. Brick by brick makes a wall. Walls don't appear in one day. They appear because someone didn't stop stacking. That night, he wrote in his notebook brick by brick. He drew a tiny brick wall in the corner and a little heart behind it, not hidden but protected. School brought its own tests. During recess, someone asked for arm wrestling again. Ari sat, elbows on the table smooth as ice. He tried, smiled, tried more, and still lost. Maya squeezed his shoulder once and said, "You're stronger in different ways today." He realized she was right. His planks were longer, his runs were smoother, his feet trusted themselves. He used to think strength was a loud thing, a thing you showed and everyone clapped. Now he felt it as a quiet thing he carried inside, and it hummed, steady as a refrigerator keeping the milk cold, not showy but essential. On a windy Thursday, they played a friendly match against a nearby school. The field smelled like mowed grass and chalk. Ari's team didn't have their regular goalie, so he stepped in. His hands shook in the gloves that now fit better, his fingers finding their place like birds finding their branch. He did the set, see, step, save mantra in his head. He told his defenders, gently and with a voice that surprised him by sounding responsible, "Left a step. You've got time. Say." The first shot came scuttling along the ground and he remembered feet first. He stepped and scooped the ball, his fingers guiding it to his chest. Thumped gently, and he hugged it like a treasure. The world did a quick little sparkle inside him. He stood, scanned the field like he'd seen in the videos, and rolled the ball to Maya on the left. It wasn't far, but it was smart, and smart felt like strength. Later, a taller forward charged, his shoulders like a moving door. They met in the box and Ari braced. He thought of bamboo. He thought of bending and springing. He got bumped and tumbled, but this time when he fell, he landed like coach taught, fold, roll, and he popped back up like toast in a toaster. "You okay?" the forward asked, hand out. "Okay," Ari said, surprised to find he meant it. He took the hand, stood, dusted grass off his knee like sprinkling herbs on soup. The boy nodded. Respect felt like a handshake you give with your eyes. The game ended in a tie. Ari let in 1 goal, a neat shot to the corner that he almost reached. He had jumped with all he had, but the ball tickled the net. Still, he had made 3 saves, each one a small star in his sky. When he got home, he ate a bowl of pasta with chicken and vegetables and thought of the saves and the goal like chapters in a book he was reading about himself, an exciting book that wasn't scary but had things to learn on every page. In the quiet after dinner, he watched more videos. He saw goalkeepers who looked lean, some who were not tall, and they were incredible. He listened to how they spoke to their teammates in clear words like lighthouses: man on, back post, step. He practiced in front of a mirror, no ball, just posture. Knees soft, shoulders relaxed, arms in front like he was holding a tray with 2 cups of tea that he didn't want to spill. He smiled at the thought. He imagined his gloves as cups holding calm. He slept deeply, dreams full of slow-motion clouds and fields of soft grass, the net a silver lullaby. The next weeks belonged to habits. Morning runs felt like brushing his teeth for his legs. Programmed exercises became beads on a string. He counted push-ups, sit-ups, squats, planks, lunges, calf raises, glute bridges, bicycle crunches. On Tuesdays he swam and felt his lungs turn into big, comfortable rooms. On Thursdays he climbed stairs at the stadium one step at a time, slow and safe, and felt like a mountain goat with careful hooves. On Saturdays he went to the park early, the dew cool on his shoes, and practiced catching. He would toss the ball high, hands forming a diamond, and bring it down softly like lowering a sleeping kitten into a basket. He bought new shin guards with birthday money, a pair that wrapped around like a hug. The first time someone's cleat connected with his leg in a tangle, he felt it, yes, but less sharply, and he breathed out instead of bracing up like a statue. He listened to Coach Elena's instructions about tucking his chin, about rolling with contact like a wave rolls with the rock. He worked on kicking. He didn't have a cannon, not yet, but he learned to plant his non-kicking foot like a root and to swing his hip as if turning to greet a friend. He practiced striking the ball with the laces, not the toe, and the sound started to change. Sometimes it went tum instead of thud. He practiced throwing too, bowling the ball sidearm overhead, learning each as if they were different languages for the same hello. And sometimes in the late afternoons, he would play with the younger kids in the neighborhood, guarding a small net that was really just 2 backpacks lying on their sides. The little ones loved to shout and shoot and cheer, and Ari loved the feel of making saves that were partly saves and partly storytelling. You can imagine the ball is a little comet, he'd tell the youngest, and then show them how to welcome it without burning up. He joined a local tournament with the club. The gym lights made the floor gleam like a lake. In the first game, butterflies lived in his stomach. He told himself they were friendly butterflies, the kind that paint your insides with hope. He saved one, then 2, then a third. He let in one, a shot that flicked off a shin and changed course like a mischievous breeze. He shook his head once, grinned at the trick the ball had played, and moved on. Between games, he ate orange slices that tasted like sunlight and drank water until it felt like a pond inside him. On the ride home after the tournament, 2 wins, 1 loss, and the kind of tired that feels clean, his mom said, "You looked like a lighthouse today." "Do you know that?" "A lighthouse?" he asked, tilting his head. "Steady," she said. "You weren't noisy." "You were there. Everyone could see it. That matters most." He thought about that. Being there. He liked how that sounded. Like a promise kept. He rested his cheek against the cool window and watched the streetlights go by like small moons strung on a wire, and even the bumps in the road felt like the gentle rocking of a boat. He was still lean. He still lost at arm wrestling most days. He still flinched sometimes when a ball came faster than his eyes expected. He still couldn't jump as high as he wished, not yet. He still felt like a well-tuned violin trying to sing like a trumpet. But he was different than before. He had strong points on an invisible compass. He had habits that built like stacked stones. And he had the soft voice inside him that didn't shake, the one that said, when he lay in bed and the world was the cool color of night, keep going. One evening, when the wind was playful and the sky wore a jacket of rosy clouds, Ari saw the park cat, gray with a tail that moved like a question mark, perched on the crossbar of the goal. He laughed. "You'd make a good goalkeeper," he told the cat. "Balance, bravery, and naps." The cat blinked as if to agree and then leapt lightly, landing with a thump no louder than a glove patting a ball. Ari stood under the goal and looked up at the sky framed by the posts. He felt the tug again, the gentle pull that had drawn him the first time. "I'll get great at this," he said quietly, to the air, to the field, to the net, to himself. "Not big fast. Slow true. But I'll get there." He imagined a day when he would jump and feel his heart rise with him, when he would dive and the ground would feel like an old friend catching him, when he would kick and the ball would sail like a bird who knew where home was. He closed his eyes to see it better. He could almost hear a future crowd, gentle, not too loud for bedtime, more like the sea applauding the sand. He opened his eyes and smiled. Tomorrow more push-ups. Tomorrow more runs. Tomorrow more soft catches until his hands learned to trust themselves the way birds trust air. And if you stood there with him and looked at the net, you'd think maybe the goal wasn't just a goal. Maybe it was a story he was writing, string by string, knot by careful knot. Maybe it was a dream you could touch. Part 2 of 5. The season turned, days stitched together by school and soccer and quiet determination. Ari learned that improvement sometimes hides like a shy animal in a shrub. It would not show itself every day, not always a big jump, not always a fast sprint, not always a celebration, but it would rustle and shift, and if he stood still inside himself and listened, he could hear I.T. moving. "Your feet are quicker," Coach Elena told him one Saturday, after a drill that used cones set like stars in a little constellation. "You change direction like a swallow changes the sky, fast and smooth." Ari felt the compliment like sun on his face. He kept refining the small things. He drew a rectangle in chalk on the wall and aimed his throws to that rectangle over and over, learning to release the ball at the right moment so it flew low and firm. He bounced a tennis ball off the wall and caught it with his left hand, then his right, then both, then one again, standing close, then a step back. He wore his gloves, then took them off, feeling the difference on his skin like the difference between boots and bare feet in sand. His fingertips grew confident. His wrists learned the soft give that cradles a catch instead of slapping at it. "Speak early," Coach reminded him during scrimmage. "Use your voice like a clock that tells time to others." So Ari practiced talking while he watched. "Left, tuck in." Right step up. I've got near. Back post watch. The first few times his voice quivered like a new note in a song, but then it steadied and turned into something calm and reliable. And he saw how his words changed how teammates stood, how they moved, and how the ball's path sometimes bent because a voice said, here or there. Felt like learning a new superpower, gentle, invisible, helpful. He worked on bravery, the quiet kind. In a one-on-one drill, coach rolled the ball to a striker, and Ari learned to wait just enough, then step forward to make the space smaller, arms wide but relaxed. First time, he went too early and the striker slid the ball around him like water around a rock. The second time, he waited and then went, timing it like catching a falling leaf at the last second. The ball struck his shin guard with a tick and he blocked it. It wasn't a flying save. It was something else, clever, timely, simple. He felt taller on the inside. Once in a game, a player kicked hard from close and Ari flinched out of habit. The ball clipped his arm and spun into the net. He bit his lip. He tasted salt and a little sadness. Coach Elena met his eyes. She touched her own cheekbone and said, eyes open. Trust your flinch will fade. See the ball into your hands. Ari nodded. After that, at home, he rolled socks and tossed them toward his face gently, teaching his eyes not to blink too soon, smiling at how funny he must have looked. Maya laughed when she saw and tossed socks back with a flourish, and very soon they were both laughing, which made it easier to keep eyes wide and welcoming. He learned to run not like he was being chased, but like he was being invited. On easy days, he jogged with a playlist of songs that felt like morning sunlight. On tougher days, he did short sprints, running the length of the field with his breath counting in patterns, then walking back, letting the air refill him, then sprinting again, learning that speed is part body, part bravery, part choosing to move when your mind would rather sit down. It was thrilling in a quiet way, like discovering a secret door in your own house. When it rained, the field smelled like wet leaves and clean earth. Ari loved those practices. The ball skipped on the grass with a hiss like a small dragon in a good mood. Catching was trickier. He learned to put his chest behind his hands so if the ball slipped, it had nowhere to fall but into him. He learned to wipe his gloves on his jersey and smile at the mud streaks like badges. He learned to love landing on soft ground. The sky was low and friendly, like a ceiling painted with gray cotton candy. School, his science teacher, Mr. Lopez, showed them a video about angles. Ari felt his ears perk up. After class, he stayed behind. Angles are important in soccer too, he told Mr. Lopez. Especially for goalkeepers. Mr. Lopez smiled like a person who enjoys seeing ideas travel across rooms. Do you want to borrow these? He handed Ari 2 small plastic mirrors and a bag of marbles. What for? Experiments, Mr. Lopez said, eyes twinkling. Roll the ball at different angles. See how reflection changes path. He winked. Tell me what you discover. That afternoon, Ari set the mirrors up at the edge of the kitchen table and experimented, rolling a marble from different spots and watching where it went. He discovered he could make the marble hit the mirror and head away from the corner if he angled the mirror just right. And then he took his ball to the wall and set cones for pretend angles and practiced stepping to cut lines. Make the goal small, he whispered, stepping and imagining the path of a shot as a line of light he could interrupt with his body. Maya showed up with a grin and 2 smoothies. For protein, she said, handing him one. Bananas. Peanut butter. Milk. It tasted like comfort mixed with resolve. He learned to fuel before practice and to refuel after. He tucked nuts into his bag and apple slices into little containers. He carried a water bottle that had a quiet slosh and a sticker of a tiny lighthouse on it, a secret he kept for himself. He went to bed earlier, too. He discovered that the best sleep came when he put his phone away and listened to a story his mind told in slow, kind pictures of field and dawn light, a net that hummed, gloves drying on the radiator like 2 small animals sunning themselves. One Saturday, the club played in a bigger tournament across town. The gym was bright, the ceiling banners making waves of color like sails in a harbor. The floor squeaked with shoes and possibilities. In the first game, they faced a team that liked to shoot from far away. The balls would climb and arc and try to sail into the top corner like seagulls. Ari had practiced jumping, but he still wasn't the highest jumper. He was learning, though, to step first and to time his leap so he met the ball at the right point. The first long shot came, high and pretty, and he saw it early, took a couple of quick steps back, set, and then jumped with knees driving up as if he had small springs inside his shoes. His fingers touched the ball, nudged it, and it glanced off the crossbar and out. The sound of it, ping, made his heart flip. You read it, Coach Elena called. Good. In the second game, a striker came barreling in and tried to push Ari aside on a scramble. Ari staggered but didn't fall. He bent like bamboo and found his center. He put his body where it needed to be, between the ball and the goal, and he said calmly, "Keepers," before he scooped the loose ball into his arms. The words felt empowering, a gentle boundary you draw around yourself with your voice. He threw a long ball to start a counterattack, sidearm flick, fingers guiding like a painter's, and it reached his teammate's feet perfectly, not too high, not too low, with a little backspin that kissed the grass. Nice distribution, someone shouted, and Ari turned the words over in his head because he liked the taste of them, like new music. Distribution. He loved that a goalkeeper could start beautiful things, not only end danger. They won one, drew one, lost one. Ari was proud, not because of the scoreboard but because of the choices he made. He chose to set his feet instead of hopping in panic. He chose to speak. He chose to shake off mistakes. He chose to laugh once when he slipped in a puddle and landed with a splash that made even the referee smile. On the ride home, the city slid by, colored lights and shadows. Ari rested his head back and closed his eyes. He was tired, but it was a good tired, deep and kind, the kind that turns into sleep like the last page of a book turning into the first page of a dream. At a red light, he thought he felt the car hum like his own body hummed, a quiet choir of muscles singing, we worked, we'll grow. Not everything was smooth. One afternoon, after a long day at school and a drizzle-heavy practice, Ari sat on the curb tying his shoe for the second time because the laces kept slipping. His hands felt heavy, like they had tiny anchors. He looked out at the field and it was just a field, not a door to the sky. He sighed and the sigh felt bigger than his chest. Maya sat beside him, knees pressed up, jacket hood up like a little tent. Hard day. Feels like I'm a kite in no wind, he said. All string, no lift. She nodded, listening the way good friends do, making space around his words. Let's go get hot chocolate. But the plan, he said, glancing at his bag. Hot chocolate is part of recovery, she said, smiling. Coach said, rest matters. Joy matters too. It's like an ingredient. If a recipe doesn't have it, it doesn't rise. They went. Cafe smelled like cinnamon and conversation. The mugs were big and the steam curled up like slow ribbon. Ari felt his shoulders melt. Thanks, he said. Any time, she said. Also, races are won by people who keep going, and you keep going. So today's just a small puddle. Tomorrow's sun. The next morning the sun did come out as if it had heard them, and the field shone as if wearing tiny diamonds. Ari ran lightly, as if the day itself had grabbed the end of his kite string and lifted. At school, a flyer went up tryouts for the school team. Keepers needed. Ari read it 3 times. His stomach did a quiet flip. Try, Maya said, bumping his shoulder with hers. What's the worst that happens? You learn and then you try again. The tryout day smelled like nerves and new socks. A whistle blew and the coach, a tall man with calm eyes and a voice like a good drum, gathered everyone. We'll start with footwork, he said. Then shooting. Then scrimmage. Ari's heart beat fast but steady. He pictured the net in his dream. He pictured his notebook. He pictured Coach Elena's calm hands showing him how to fold into the ground like a letter to a friend. He moved through cones, 1-2, 1-2, quick feet. Caught low crosses, hands soft. He set, saw, stepped, saved. He missed 1, 2, 3 and caught the next one. He jumped and touched a ball that, last month, would have laughed over his head. He hit a kick and then struck the next one sweet as ripe fruit. During scrimmage, he made a decision he would remember. A striker broke through, and Ari ran forward, not wild but sure, narrowing the angle, spreading his arms, making himself big in. the tidy way he'd learned. The striker took the shot and the ball hit Ari's thigh and bounced out. A defender cleared it. Ari exhaled, chest warm, legs thrumming like guitar strings. Through the coach read names. Ari stood with his hands in his pockets to keep from wringing them. When his name came, it felt like a bell in a quiet chapel. He looked at Maya, who raised both eyebrows in a fireworks of yes. He smiled, small because he didn't want to spill it, but it reached his eyes. On the walk home, the sky looked extra blue, like someone had washed it. That night, he wrote school team. Then, underneath, keep building. Felt like planting a sign in his garden here, growth. He trained with the school team in addition to the club. The drills were sharper. The shots were harder. Pace was faster. He discovered that when the game got quick, his mind could slow. He made a habit of naming things he saw as they happened: two on the left, runner at back post, pressure on ball. The words organized the world for him so it didn't feel like a storm. It felt like music with a beat he could follow. He loved that. He loved finding a calm corner inside a noisy game. On Friday nights, when the week had been full and his muscles were as tired as library books after finals, he'd stretch on his bedroom floor. Carpet felt like a field in miniature. He would rotate his ankles, count, rotate his wrists, count, stretch his quads, count. He'd breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, the little box of breath he'd learned. Made his insides tidy. Then he'd turn off the lamp and look at the ceiling and imagine the net again, its silver squares catching stars like fireflies and letting them shine close enough to see. He still stumbled. Once he called "keepers" and spilled the ball because he closed his hands too late. Once, he dove and landed awkwardly and rolled onto his back like a turtle, staring up and blinking tears of surprise away. Once, he shouted too loud and too late, and felt the echo of his own voice bounce off a mistake. But then there were the moments that glowed like marbles found on a beach. A fingertip save that sent the ball around the post like water around a pier. A long, arcing throw that started a goal. A simple pickup followed by a pause, then a smart pass that calmed a wild moment. Teammates clapped his back. Coach nodded. He felt for seconds at a time and then minutes like the lighthouse. Teddy. Bright. Enough. The wonder threaded through everything. Cat still watched from the fence sometimes, tail curled like a question mark that was really an exclamation. The moon still played its trick of being a ball hung in the sky by an invisible string. Once after practice, he lay on the grass and stretched his arms wide and felt the earth hold him up the way a glove holds a ball. "I'm held," he whispered, and he wondered if that's what bravery was, not the absence of fear but the presence of holding, by habits, by friends, by coaches, by a plan, by a quiet, steady promise. Part 3 of 5. By the time leaves turned, crisp and colored like a basket of crayons, Ari had built a slow fire inside him. Not a bonfire, not a show, but a hearth fire, steady and warming. He had made the school team. He was playing some minutes in real games, not just scrimmages. He learned to love the clack of his cleats on the concrete walkway, the hush of the grass as he stepped onto it, the cool hug of the gloves as he slid them on. Today we work on crosses, Coach Elena announced at club. High balls. Timing. Courage with a parachute. She smiled at the last part. They practiced under a sky that was like a big bowl of blue. The ball swooped in like migrating birds, and Ari watched, counted, and then moved. The trick was to decide, come or stay. If he came, he committed with a little hop to get going, knees high, hands forming the shape he'd seen in 100 videos. If he stayed and set. The first few felt messy, like painting with a brush that splayed. His hands slapped at the ball, or his knees knocked, or he came through traffic and bumped shoulders and forgot his word, keepers, until it was late. Make your voice the first step, Coach Elena said. Say it before your feet move. He tried again. The ball rose, turning in the light. Keepers, he called and leapt, knees forward to protect himself, elbows soft, fingers strong. The ball landed in his hands and he brought it into his chest like bringing a little bird into a nest. He even landed on one foot, then the other like he'd seen keepers do, rolling with the force. Again, Coach called. Again. He did. The world sharpened into a series of right nows, and he loved that about soccer. It was always now and then now again. On days he didn't have practice, he kept to his plan. Strength work like a patient drumbeat. Cardio that felt like weather in his lungs, sometimes sunny, sometimes cloudy, always moving through. Flexibility that made him feel like a string tuned perfectly, neither too tight nor too loose. His diet kept him clean feeling. His sleep folded around him like a comfortable blanket. He added a new drill, the law. Dur. Not a real ladder, but a flat one made of straps and squares laid on the ground. He stepped in and out, feet whispering, toes quick. He pretended he was writing secret messages on the grass with his shoes. He did it forward, sideways, backwards, each variation a new sentence. He laughed when he messed up, stepping on the straps like a puppy stepping on its own leash. He practiced diving more, now onto grass with pads at first. Coach Elena had them work one side, then the other, teaching symmetry to bodies that preferred one direction. Left loves to be strong, right loves to be brave, she said. Switch them. Teach both. He learned to push off the foot closest to the ball, to step toward it with the other foot, to let his body tilt like a tree in a friendly wind, to shoot his hands to the ball like stars shooting across the night. He discovered that landing didn't hurt when he did it right. Felt like hugging the ground, like returning a borrowed book. The school team played a match on a field that smelled like wood smoke from nearby houses. Team bus hummed with jokes and headphones. Ari sat by the window and made a small square of calm with his breath. the field, he warmed up with the keeper coach, 10 slow catches, 10 medium, 10 fast. The ball patted his hands like a friend. He felt nervous butterflies flutter. He said hello to them. "You can ride along," he told them. "But I'm driving." The game began. The other team was quick and liked to pass like magicians, making the ball disappear for a second and reappear on the other side. Ari stayed alert. He talked. He moved his defenders like chess pieces, only they were friends and they moved themselves, and he loved how that worked. In the 20th minute, a shot came through traffic and he saw it late. Feet first, he thought, stepped, stuck a foot out, and the ball clanged off his shoe and went wide. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. He smiled because sometimes useful is prettier than pretty. Later, a long, high ball floated toward his box. He glanced at the nearest forward. He counted the steps. He said his word, "Keepers." He went up. He caught. He landed. He tucked the ball in and breathed. His teammates exhaled with him as if they were all part of one giant pair of lungs. He rolled the ball out to the right, starting something small that turned into something big 3 passes later, a goal for them. He didn't jump in celebration. He knelt, pressed his gloves together, and thanked the little chain of decisions that made that moment. They won by 1. Ari slept that night like a rock in a river, solid, the world moving around him kindly. He didn't win every time. There were losses that tasted like metal and taught like books. In one, he misread a ball and came when he should have stayed. The forward chipped the ball over him, a tiny rainbow he could not catch. He lay on the grass, face pressed to the earth that smelled like rain and disappointment. He wanted the ground to swallow him. He breathed. Brick by brick, he heard in his head. He stood. He kept going. Then one morning, an email: he had been invited to a regional camp for promising players, a place where kids came from many neighborhoods with different accents and the same love. His mom printed it and put it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a star. "Look at you," she said, voice thick with happy. His dad lifted Ari just for a second, even though Ari was heavier now with training and time. "First step, next step," his dad said into his hair. "Keep stepping." At camp, the coaches moved like friendly hawks, eyes sharp. They tested everything: footwork, handling, diving, distribution, bravery, calm. Ari found kids taller than him, kids stronger than him, kids faster than him. First he thought, "I'm a small kite again," and then he thought, "I brought my wind this time." He focused on what he could control: set, see, step, voice early, hands soft, angle right. He noticed something: even the tallest kids sometimes flinched. Even the fastest sometimes forgot to breathe. He realized all around him were people building too, brick by brick. There was a coach with silver hair who watched him for a while. After a drill, the coach called him over. "You move like water," the coach said. "Not a big crashing wave. A steady river. Rivers carve valleys. Keep carving." Ari tucked the words into his pocket. On the last day they scrimmaged. The whistle turned the world into now. A forward broke free and the ball hopped on the grass like it had small legs. Ari came out, measured, knees bent, arms open like welcoming a hug from someone you love but aren't sure of yet. The forward shot low toward the corner. Ari threw himself, body rolling, hands to ball, fingers tight. It stuck. He landed and curled around it, hearing the muffled sound of the world through the thickness of the ball against his ear. He smiled into the leather. When the camp ended, they gave feedback sheets. Ari said excellent footwork. Growing bravery. Communication clear. Work on vertical jump and long distribution. He liked that, work on. Sounded like a path with signposts. He added calf raises to his routine like a metronome. 4 ankles. He skipped rope with rhythm, the rope whispering by his ears. He added small box jumps onto a low step, landing soft as snowfall. He visited the track with his dad and practiced bounding, feeling spring load and release like the click of a slingshot. His throws lengthened like shadows in late afternoon. He found that a long throw wasn't just arm, it was legs and hips and whoosh. He learned to roll it far with backspin, to sling it like a fisherman casts a line, to toss it over shorter defenders like tossing a soft pillow over a couch. He also learned that rest days are real days. He took them seriously and joyfully. On rest days, he became a boy again without a plan, just feet and curiosity. He built forts with his little cousin out of blankets. He lay in the yard and watched ants do their own drills. He read stories where heroes were quiet and smart and kind. He drew pictures of gloves holding stars. He played chords on a borrowed guitar. He laughed and let laughter fill him like air fills a balloon. Maya, meanwhile, kept pace with her own dreams, track team, long jump, the way her body flew for a moment like a thought. They compared notes about flying. "It's about the moment before," Maya said. "You decide to go. That's the magic. The rest is technique." Ari nodded. He thought that maybe everything worth doing shared this secret, something steady in your chest that says yes and then you go. Because of all this, because of months turning into a year of bricks and bridges, something that had felt impossible began to feel like a mountain far away that he was actually climbing. Cool Team led to getting noticed by the city's youth program. The youth program led to bigger fields, brighter lights, and buses that hummed with 100 different songs in 100 different headphones. He played, not always starting, not always shining, but always steady. He learned to embrace warm-ups like rituals, to shake hands with opponents like meeting cousins from another town, to accept wins with gentle smiles and losses with soft shoulders. He ate well without fuss. He drank water like it was part of the game. He slept like it was homework he loved. He learned that sugar made his mind feel like a bouncing ball and that too much junk made his body feel like a couch that had been sat on for years. He still had treats, but he gave them their place, small bright spices, not the whole meal. He learned to listen to hunger and to fullness like listening to music, not with rules but with attention. There came a day that felt like the end of one chapter and the start of another. He was a little older. He walked onto a field with stands that curved like cupped hands. The grass was a richer green than all the greens he had seen so far. He zipped his jacket against a breeze that smelled like pretzels and paint. He looked around. He felt ready and not ready both at once, exactly as important things feel. He squeezed Maya's hand. She was there to cheer, and she squeezed back. "Remember the moon," she whispered. "It's a ball. It's yours to catch." Part 4 of 5 High school, then college. The words felt like stairs in a tall building. Ari climbed, one careful step at a time, sometimes 2 steps when he had the spring, sometimes pausing on a landing to look out a window and breathe. He made the high school varsity team and learned that people could cheer so loudly it felt like rain. He learned that behind every loud moment were 1,000 quiet ones stretching in empty gyms, lacing shoes in hallways that smelled like old books and new hope, sitting on buses in the deep, dark night with your head against the window and your heart humming like a small engine. He grew, but not into a giant. He stayed lean, a willow among oaks. But he learned to love his kind of strength, quick feet, elastic ankles, hands like soft clamps that knew just how hard to hold. He learned to meet stronger forwards not with force but with angles, timing, and a sense for distance that felt like he had a measuring tape in his chest. College added layers. Practices were crisp. The games were sharp. Pace was a river in spring. He found himself on fields where the white lines glowed under lights like chalk lines in a theater. He found himself stretched and tested and sometimes stunned. There were games where he made big saves and felt 10 feet tall inside a 5-foot-something frame. There were games where he made mistakes, silly, sour ones, and felt small as a seed. There were mornings he woke with shoulders and hips that felt like old doors needing oil. There were nights he slept like a stone thrown into deep, still water. He added to his plan because he kept learning. There was a goalkeeper coach in college named Bree who taught details that were poems pre-jump timing. Your toes kiss the ground and lift as the shot comes, hand shape adjustments, smile with your fingers, recovery moves, fall to rise. Coach Bree taught distribution like chess and art, driven passes to outside backs, clipped balls to midfielders, slow rolls to pause a game that needed breath. You are a conductor, Coach Bree said. You can speed the music up or slow it down Wiho. T ever touching a baton. Ari lifted modest weights now, learned to deadlift like lifting a suitcase off a tall shelf, learned to squat like sitting on an invisible chair with dignity, learned to press like pushing a skyward door open. He lifted not to be big but to be resilient, to keep joints happy, to ask muscles to stand up for their bones. He warmed up in ways that made his body feel like a theater troupe rehearsing before a show, each part learning its cues. He cooled down with gratitude, patting calves and quads like thanking teammates. He kept watching videos, the legends, the quiet geniuses, the surprising rookies. He watched more than saves. He watched how they stood when nothing happened, how they talked between plays, how they breathed after mistakes. He watched shoulders. He watched eyes. He watched feet. He copied the ones who were calm as lakes and gave himself permission to be a lake too. He volunteered with younger teams, showing kids how to catch low, how to make friends with the ball. He said to them what was once said to him: feet first, hands next, dive when needed. Angles are magic. Voice is a lantern. He loved their faces when they made a save, the little burst of sunlight their smile became. He brought orange slices and water, and sometimes he brought stories: the cat on the crossbar, the mirrors on the table, the first time the ball felt like the moon in his hands. So when the email came one winter afternoon, subject line National Team Camp Invitation, Ari stood up and then sat down again. The world tilted and then steadied. He read it 3 times. He put a hand over his heart like people do when the anthem plays, and the hand felt the thud-thud that was equal parts joy and disbelief. "Mom," he called, voice strange, and when she came, he handed her the phone. She read. Her eyes became oceans. "Oh, Ari," she said, and she folded him into a hug that was gigantic, bigger than the room, bigger than the house. His dad pulled them both in, one arm then the other, and for a second they were a small, strong huddle like a team gathers before a game to say together. Training with the national team was like jumping into a storybook where the pages were bigger. The lines on the field looked the same but somehow felt like they had history under them, as if all the footsteps from players before him were layered beneath like leaves. Coaches were exacting and kind. The drills were familiar and yet elevated, like old songs played on grander instruments. The shots came fast. Crosses came higher. The games of feet and angles were more complex, like chess when you know the names of all the openings. Ari felt at once very small and exactly the right size. He said. He saw. He stepped. He saved. He learned new things too: how to read hips from farther away, how to sprint and stop and sprint again without feeling like his legs argued, how to lead with voice among players who all knew how to lead. He whispered the mantra he had kept from kidhood. He found that mantras are like old friends, they age with you and their voices deepen. One evening after practice, he wandered to the empty goal and traced the net with his fingers. The stadium lights were soft. The sky was a velvet dark. He thought of everything: the first time he flinched, the first time the ball stung his hands, the wall sits when his quads trembled like jelly, the Zumba class where he forgot the steps and danced anyway, the orange slices, the socks tossed at his face while he laughed, the rides home where the streetlights looked like beads on a string. He thought of being pushed and getting up, of shins knocked and learning to roll, of feeling weak and finding different kinds of strong. He thought of the notebook under his pillow, the plan, the blue cover, the small hand printing promises. He thought of Maya, who now competed in college meets where sand pits were like beaches waiting for flight. He texted her a photo of the empty goal. She wrote back, "I can see you there." Lighthouse. He smiled, pocketed his phone, and looked up at the moon, which was round and kind. "Still here," he said to it. "Still catching." They played a friendly match, the national team versus a strong club side. Ari didn't start, but he went through his rituals with attention laces checked, gloves warmed, shoulders rolled, breaths counted. He watched the game unfold like a story told by masters. He listened. He learned. He was called on in the second half. He jogged to the goal, feeling the grass push back like a trampoline, feeling his body as it had become, not bigger but clearer, like a drawing layered and shaded until it looked true. The first action he faced was a cross curling in. He judged it and stayed, trusting his center back to head it away. The second was a shot aimed low, skipping. He set, stepped, read the bounce, and smothered it, the ball a warm weight under his forearms. The third was the kind that wrote itself in vivid ink, a free kick just outside the area, a wall tall and strong, an opponent who could bend the ball like a question mark. The whistle blew. The run-up. The ball lifted and curled toward the top corner, trying to paint the angle W. It's its own name. Ari saw it early. He took a tiny pre-jump, knees preloaded, and then he sprang. Not like a giant. Like a well-tuned spring, like bamboo in a wind that knows when to push back. His hands formed the shape he loved. The ball met the tip of his fingers. Time did something soft. It slowed, it let him look, and then sped up again. The ball bent instead of going straight. Kissed the post and went out for a corner. The stadium made a sound that rolled over him like a wave, not too big but big enough to warm every part of him. He landed and laughed, a little gasp of joy no one heard but him. After the game, in the quiet of the locker room, he sat with a towel around his shoulders and listened to the drip-drip of showers and the soft talk of teammates. He felt the tired that says, "You did your work." He felt the calm that says, "There is more to do and you will do it." He texted his parents one sentence, "Good game, we drew, I made a save that felt like the moon." His mom replied with 10 emojis of stars and a lighthouse. His dad wrote, "Proud of your calm. Sleep now." He did. The months folded into each other. Training, studying, traveling, calling home, laughing with teammates about small things that weren't small at all, like songs and cereal preferences and the exact right way to tape your wrist. Ari grew in exactly the way he had hoped. He became more himself. He kept choosing. Choices were small: to drink water when he could drink soda, to stretch when he could slump, to sleep when he could scroll, to breathe when he could buzz. Choices added like stepped stones across a river, and one day he looked back and saw he had crossed. Then came the day he had imagined when he was a boy, folding a blanket around a ball on a worn mat, a call that said, We would like you to join the national team squad for the upcoming match. He would be second goalkeeper, dressed and ready under lights big as moons. He sat on his bed, shoes off, noble socks with silly penguins on them, and he smiled at the contrast. Mattered to him to keep some silliness. Kept the world bright. He walked onto the field, not starting but feeling sprung. He knew his job to be alert, to support, to learn, to be ready. He warmed the starting keeper up, knuckleballs and clipped crosses, smiles and nods. During the game, he vibrated not with nerves but with readiness, the kind that tastes like clean water. Late in the second half, the starting keeper signaled to the bench, calf tight, a little pinch. Coach turned. Ari, he said, and that one word turned the air into a bell again. Ari nodded. He stood. He adjusted his gloves. He crossed the white line like stepping into a story he had been writing since the blue notebook. First touch came quick, a back pass with an opponent racing in. He settled the ball with the inside of his foot and passed it calmly to the left, right pace, right angle, like setting a plate on a table. The second, a shot from distance, easy, into his hands like a gentle throw. The third, the kind that would be told later by children to each other in bedrooms before sleep. A through ball split the defense, and a striker sprinted clear under lights that made the grass look like polished jade. Ari stepped out, measuring the world a syllable by syllable language he now spoke. He thought of the river. He thought of the bamboo. He thought of the lighthouse. He spread, set, saw, stepped. The striker feinted left, went right, shot low, fast, greedy. Ari moved with a softness that was really precision. He dropped his knee, swept his leg, reached his hand, and the ball struck his palm, a sting, a kiss, and popped wide. The world made the sound a sea makes when it loves the shore. His teammates swarmed him, not like a storm but like a joyful flock. He stood, cheeks flushed, and found his breath had done its job without needing to be asked. The game whistled to an end. A draw again, a good one. In the tunnel, he bumped fists and fielded gentle ribbing in quiet praise. He sat in the locker room, damp hair and a grin that couldn't be helped, and closed his eyes for a second. He saw the boy who had been scared to touch a fast ball, the boy who had fallen and felt the grass on his cheek, the boy whose shins had ached even through guards, the boy who had lost arm wrestles and not minded because he was learning different strength, the boy who had written a plan in a blue notebook and tucked it under his pillow as if sleep would help it grow. He whispered, "Thank you." Then he opened his eyes and joined the world again, the real one where magic hides in ordinary rituals. Part 5 of 5 years rolled like a steady drumline. School team, college team, then national team, and not just invited, not just bench, but playing, starting, saving. Ari never stopped being a learner. He added new exercises when old ones felt easy, not to boast but to keep the river moving. He ran not farther but smarter. He jumped not higher but better. He dove not in showy arcs but in curves designed by physics and practice. He ate color and protein and grains and fats that made his nerves smile. He respected sleep like a wise elder at a family gathering. Articles were written about him that made more noise than he liked, and he learned to fold them into paper airplanes and let them fly away in his mind. He kept his circle. He called Coach Elena after big games and small, and she always said something like, "I knew you when you first learned the ground was a friend," and he laughed. He texted Coach Bree about distribution patterns, and they drew diagrams with arrows and jokes. He sent Maya videos from hotel rooms, city lights like stars upside down, and she sent him slow motion clips of her long jumps, footprints erased by wind as she walked away from the sand. He visited his old school and let kids take shots at him. He saves some and lets them in with a wink, mixing challenge and victory because both teach. He told them the story of his list, not to brag but to show a map. He listed the odds that were once stacked like boxes taller than him, lean, looked weak among bigger kids, lost arm wrestles, afraid of fast balls, knocked down easily, shins that rang like bells, couldn't jump high, couldn't kick far, couldn't throw far, couldn't dive well, couldn't run fast. He didn't hide those. He held them up, then turned them to show the other side. Then I tried. Then I learned. Then I tried again. Then I changed food. Then I slept. Then I breathed. Then I practiced small things until they felt like friends. Then I played and learned from playing. Then I believed like someone who makes a garden and trusts seeds to be seeds. He distilled for them what he had discovered like a recipe you pass down. Start small. Repeat with kindness. Eat like an athlete you love. Sleep like tomorrow depends on it. Watch people who do it well and notice tiny things. Practice when it's quiet. Laugh. Drink water. Stretch. Think. Use angles. Trust your hands. Trust your feet. Trust your voice. Mistakes are teachers. Courage is not loud. It is steady. If you feel scared, say hello to fear. It's just your body's way of cheering for you in a weird language. Then he told them something else, something important. I'm still not the biggest, he said, and he smiled. But I can jump high now. I can dive fast. I can catch well. I can throw far and kick strong and run quick. I can because I learned how. 'Cause I decided to keep going. You don't have to be someone else's shape of strong. You can be your own. His biggest game came on a night when the air felt like velvet and the crowd felt like a heartbeat. He walked out holding the hand of a child who looked up at him the way he had once looked up at others. He squeezed the child's hand and felt 1,000 tiny lives joining for a moment. He looked at the flag. He sang not loud but honest. He looked at the goal. He smiled at it like it was an old friend he hadn't seen in a while. The whistle went. The game turned into that dear now. He made early saves and simple passes and one long, clean throw that started a move that became a goal for them. He made one mistake and fixed it. He made one big save late where he dove left and felt time roll like a coin and the ball stuck and he thought, I have it, I have it, I have it, and he did. The game ended. They won by a hair. He didn't punch the air, not much. He covered his face with his gloves for a second, not to hide but to hug himself with the things that had carried him here. Habits, hope, hands. Porters asked questions. He answered politely and put the spotlight on his teammates. He showered, dressed, sat, and tied his shoes, the second knot careful like all second knots are. He walked out into a night that smelled like rain even though it wasn't raining. He looked up. The moon had that familiar, friendly roundness. On impulse, he mimed catching it, hands in a W, elbows soft, bringing it into his chest. He laughed at himself, a man still in love with a boy's dream. On the bus, he texted to Mom and Dad, thank you for breakfast and belief. To Maya, remember when we called fear butterflies? They were still there. I let them ride. They behaved. He looked out the window. The streetlights slipped past like pearls on a string, the bus a thread. He rested his head and let memories stitch themselves in patterns he could wear on colder days: table tennis clicks, volleyball moons, tennis strings, pickleball spring, the first goal that seemed like a door, the sting of a ball and the softness of a mat, coaches' voices like recipes, Maya's grin like a sparkler, mirrors and marbles and ladders and ropes, the taste of water after a long run, the feel of grass on a cheek, the sound of a crowd like a sea, the hush in his chest when he was set, and the world aligned like planets. He slept. He dreamt. And in his dream the net was a silver quilt, and the ball was a warm loaf of bread, and the field was a green book. He walked through it all with calm steps, and his hands knew what to do. In the morning at breakfast he wrote a new page in a new notebook. He wrote, keep going. Not because I need to prove anything, but because I love the way the game holds me. Underneath, he added, be kind. Be steady. Be a lighthouse. And in homes where children listened to bedtime stories, some of them told Ari's story to each other in their own words. They left out the scary parts because there weren't really any. They made bigger the parts where he laughed or learned or lifted a ball like a moon. They said he wasn't strong at first and he got pushed and fell, and he was scared of fast balls, and then they said, smiling into their pillows and feeling their hearts beat like small drums, but he wrote a plan. He ate good food. He did push-ups and planks and lunges and wall sits and all the funny ones like Russian twists and Supermans. He ran and swam and danced and climbed and shadow boxed and did kickboxing and aerobics and Zumba and rode a bike that stayed in one place and one that didn't. He stretched like a cat and breathed like a quiet bell. He watched videos and practiced positioning and played in tournaments and learned to believe. He slept. He kept going. He got better. He became great. He played for his school, then college, and then the national team. He made saves that sounded like ping on a post and tum in his chest, and he was respected. People liked him not just for the saves but for his calm. And the moral is, what is the moral? Could be said like this: determination and perseverance are like sunlight and water. You need both. If you have them, a seed can become a tree and a lean, quiet boy can become a great goalkeeper. Or it could be said like this: you don't have to be the biggest to catch the moon. Or like this: courage is steady and kindness to yourself is fuel. Sometimes, at the end of a day that has been long and full, if you close your eyes and take one slow breath, you might see a field, green and friendly, and a net woven of silver thread, and a ball like a small, bright promise floating toward you. You set. You see. You step. You save. You hold it against your heart, and the world becomes very, very peaceful, like the last page of a story, and then the soft beginning of sleep. If you'd like me to continue with an epilogue of Ari visiting his first goal and passing the torch to a new young keeper, say continue.